What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Season 3 off-season. We just got off our win against Texas A&M for their first bowl game in the Dynasty's history. And now we're just going to look at the recap of the 2017 season, I think it is, in this universe. And if you want to see more of the off-season stuff, that'll be the next episode. This is more of just a recap of our season. We're going to start off with the schedule, where we opened up with 2 straight wins to teams that only got 3 wins, Temple and Houston. They weren't even that big of wins, so kind of set the stage early that this wasn't going to be as great of a season as I thought it would be, although we still did go 9-4. Then we beat number 25 Purdue. We ended up one space ahead of them. That was a 5-point victory. Then we beat Auburn, one of the better games I've had in this series so far, 28-24. Then we lost to number 9 Nebraska. Have to expect that, although it was only a 10-point game. We then beat number 21 Michigan by 20. That was a big game. But then we lost to Penn State 20-34. That should have been a game that we should have won, but that was just a very poor performance. And then, of course, we lost to Ohio State by a lot, and that was just what we've always done. Then we beat Indiana, and then we lost to Northwestern. We beat Maryland, our rivalry game, but they only went 2-10 on the season. See, combined a record was only 80-73 by our opponents, so not the greatest schedule. And we, of course, finished off the season against Michigan State. And then we won against Texas A&M 30-16 in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl. So good season overall, but definitely the turnovers killed us. We're going to look at the conference champions. Western Kentucky beat Middle Tennessee State 38-20. USF beat Memphis in the American. Alabama beat Florida for the SEC. Fresno State beat Colorado State for the Mountain West. Arizona beat Washington State for the Pac-12. Clemson over Virginia Tech for the ACC. And then, of course, Ohio State beat Nebraska for the Big Ten by 21 points. So Ohio State still the best team in our conference, as they always have been. Toledo against Ohio, that was a close game. Only a 3-point game. I think TCU won the Big 12. I can't remember who built the Sun Belt, but we'll get into that later. We'll also look at the independents. That's just part later in this video. So we're going to look at the bowl games. So just going to go quickly through this. I thought it was going to sort by date. I think I clicked on the wrong part of the where you can see all this stuff. It was showed by like the prestige or something. So these are kind of just random. Let's see. We got Penn State losing to Ball State. Then we have Michigan beating Texas 43-37. Let's see, I hope I'm not missing any. Michigan State beat Oklahoma State by 4. We have Minnesota beating Tulane. Florida beat Northwestern. Purdue beat South Carolina. Ohio State lost to Arizona in the Rose Bowl. That's a upset for them. And then Nebraska lost to Missouri. So that's look at our Big Ten opponents. Pretty even in the number of wins and losses. So still very hard conference to compete in. We'll look to try for next year to try to rise up in these Big Ten rankings. Top 25, Clemson, after beating Alabama in the national championship, they're obviously going to be number 1. They had a 41-21 victory in the national championship. TCU, Arizona, let's see. Ohio State finished at number 8. And come down here, it's a pretty big while to our next Big Ten, but that's going to be Michigan. I think I might have missed Nebraska in there, but of course us at number 24. And then Purdue is just behind at about 26 there. I think I did miss Nebraska. I think they started, but we finished second in the Big Ten East. But now looking at the ACC, Clemson obviously finished that at number 1. USF finished off the top of the American. Of course, if you want to see your specific team, pause real quick, but I mean, there's not really much information in this. TCU did end up winning the Big 12. We finished 5th in the Big Ten, even though we only finished 2nd in the East. So the West was very good this year. So if we do make it to the Big Ten championship, that will be a pretty good game, as there should be pretty good teams competing in that. Conference USA was Southern Miss. Independence was BYU. And I'm going to be talking about the Conference USA later in this video, as I did kind of mix things up with the conference changes, because if you go back and look at it, it kind of looks a little weird with the amount of like division games they played. But let's get back to this. Mountain West goes to Fresno State with an 8-1 conference record. And Pac-12 is won by Washington State. I think they beat Arizona, or Oregon, or something like that. Alabama finishing off the top of the SEC. A lot of 10-win teams in the SEC, so definitely one of the better conferences besides the Big Ten. The Sun Belt, Arkansas State, they won that. There's no championship game for that. And South Alabama, only 1-11. It's pretty bad for them. Now looking at the team stats, Washington State had the best overall offense by a lot, 7,000 yards, almost 6,200 passing yards. That's just crazy. And 4,000 rushing yards for Arizona. That is also crazy. But Washington State had 42 points a game. We're going to be talking about their Heisman potential guy at Washington State a little bit later in this video. Look at the defense. Arkansas State had the best defense. TCU had the best pass defense. We had the best run defense, but for some reason teams in this game just don't run against you that much. I've been trying to fix that, but it just doesn't really work. 40 sacks for Colorado State. 12 fumble recoveries from Marshall. 24 interceptions for Ohio. We had a lot of third down conversions compared to other teams, but Oregon had the best ratio. Oregon State had the perfect fourth down conversion rate. Alabama with one of the best offenses to score. And Georgia Tech looks like they have the best, one of the best red zone defenses. Now we're going to go into turnovers, and this is where it just gets really ugly. Oklahoma State only threw one passing touchdown, but we gave the ball away 38 times. That is 10 more than the third place team. That is something we need to cut down on. 25 interceptions. I kind of got crazy there at the end. Just throwing the ball, trying to get us a good record with wins, and it just didn't turn out that well. Something I'm definitely going to focus on for Season 4 is not turning the ball over. We also let fumbles away, but Tyshawn Dye ended up winning the Heisman. He had 22 touchdowns, about 2,000 yards, 6.5 yards a carry, about 145 yards a game, and he also added 4 on through the air, I guess. But this is where it gets crazy. Luke Falk ended up third in the Heisman voting with 64 passing touchdowns, 5,700 yards. He had a 175 quarterback rating, and he passed for over 400 yards a game. Craziest quarterback play in the history of the game, pretty much, and he didn't win the Heisman. So that was just crazy. He, of course, got first team All-American, so that's pretty good for him. Now looking at the rest of this team, we don't have anyone on first team offense, but we do have someone on first team defense. Sebastian Joseph is our first team starting defensive tackle. He had 10 sacks on the season, also 33 tackles, and a defensive touchdown to add onto it. That was the final game that was in the bowl game. He had a good season, definitely worthy of the first team Big Ten. And we get through the rest of the defense. We had both of our safeties, although I think that they really, from now on, they're just going to continue to win because the game just pretty much counts as tackles. I don't think they really deserved first team All-American. I mean, they had 60 tackles, which is, I think that's the only reason that they won. It's because the game can't properly calculate tackles. I'm going to keep on saying this every offseason, but it always keeps on happening. But we don't really get credit for first team or second team All-Americans on defense anyway. Our coach only gets it if they get on offense. Second team, we had Erica Waife. I think I've been saying that weird the whole time, but whatever. He had 8 sacks on the season. Keith Hale, our middle linebacker, although tackles for a middle linebacker is pretty good. So 74, that might have won him the All-American. I think he was pretty good. And maybe deserving, I think he was deserving of second team All-American. He's definitely really good. And we're looking at the rest of the guys, no one else. And for freshmen, we actually had Dustin Neal as our first All-American for offense, I think ever, for anything. So it's pretty good. He had 867 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns. Not a lot of touchdowns, but I'm going to look to improve that, as he probably will be the best red zone target, or just target in general next year. So looking forward to that. And a lot of Big Ten teams here in this freshman. A lot of Ohio State, a lot of Nebraska, and that's not the greatest in the news, I guess. Looking at first team Big Ten, no one on offense. but a lot of Ohio State, a lot of Nebraska, as I just said before. But Sebastian Joseph and Eric Lefebvre for both of our defensive tackles. Keith Hale, Squan Hampton, and Andre Hunt as our defense. Our defense is pretty good, but again, I'm not sure if they would have won if the game properly calculated tackles. Looking at second team, we also had Miles Nash, so pretty much our entire defensive front is on here. Miles Nash will be graduating, though. He didn't have the greatest senior season, better than his teammates, but Deontay Roberts also finished here on outside linebacker. Another one I don't really know if he would have won normally, but whatever. Eli Apple is still with Ohio State. That's pretty weird. I think he should have left he left 2 years ago in real life, if you account for the universe or whatever, game universe, but whatever. Looking at the award winners, Luke Falk, of course, won a lot of these. Joshua Kalu, Benaric, and the Nagurski, and Luke Falk with the O'Brien. Nick Wilson with the Walker, who led the best rushing attack in the game. Robert Lewis winning that one. Mackey goes to Steve Richards. Billy Price with the Outland Award. Remington goes to Doug Brenner of Oregon. The Lombardi goes to AJ Natter of Nebraska, and you can see Sebastian Joseph on that list. Best linebacker, Quentin Poling from Ohio. The Thorpe goes to Joshua Kalu from Nebraska again. He racked up a lot of awards. Ron Taylor from Alabama. Freshman kicker gets the Groza, and the Ray Guy Award goes to Joseph Carlton of USC. Best returner, I'm not even sure what his name was, but Brad Kaya. He had the best quarterback rating by almost 10 points, and I think that was a record for best quarterback rating in the game entirely. Hayden Reddick was one of the top passers, but we expected too much of him. The run game just was so bad. Or not terrible, but just not good enough that we had to rely so much on Hayden Reddick that he did throw 25 interceptions, as I've said multiple times. But Luke Falk, 120 yards a game over the next top passer. That is just so insane. I cannot believe he did not win the Heisman. But I don't know what you need to do to win the Heisman, I guess, as a quarterback. I guess we'll see. But 70% completion percentage for JT Barrett. That's pretty good. Brad Kaya also 69%. He's probably going to be the top quarterback out of this class. And Ryan Finley leads that in average. Kind of just, Hayden Reddick was sacked 35 times, so maybe the line also wasn't the greatest. A lot of forced passes because of that. Almost 2,200 for yards for Nick Wilson. We did say that before. Jalen Hurd with 7.4 yards a carry. That is crazy. I'm just kind of looking through some of these. On touchdowns, it does go to Nick Wilson, although Tyshon Dye ended up winning the Heisman. I don't know why Nick Wilson was not chosen over him when he did have more yards a carry, more carries, and all that. I don't know. And he also had more yards a game. I don't know why he didn't win the Heisman. Probably a lot of people did not like the choice of going to Tyshon Dye, as there was Nick Wilson and Luke Falk, who clearly played better. Hayden Reddick also led in rushing fumbles. That's great. Only one player with over 100 receptions. That's not that common. Usually there's a bunch of players, but a lot of players over 1,100 yards here. Some of these higher passing offenses. As far as we don't have anyone up here, Dustin Neal did have 800 yards, so he might improve upon that and might become our first 1,000-yard passer, or not passer, but receiver in this season of this series. 20 receiving touchdowns for Lewis there, along with 92 to Alex Austin. Only 4 players over 100 receiving yards a game. 12 dropped passes for Terrell Harmon. He's fast, but he can't catch the ball. So hopefully his catching improves in the offseason. 14 sacks given up for Quinn Blasler. That's not very good. A lot of 100 tacklers here. Although, as I've said, every single offseason, the game just does not calculate tackles correctly. So looking at these stats is just so weird. Although, there was a few players with a pretty good amount of solo tackle. Maybe I just need to sub out people more to try to balance that out. Maybe I'll do that for Season 4. It's just up the amount that these players are subbed out to try to get these numbers down a little bit. Make it a little bit more realistic. 10 sacks for Sebastian Joseph at 8, and Wi-Fi down there at 8. Allensworth with 10 interceptions. That's pretty good in only a 12 season, or 12-game season. Some of the longest interceptions, 99 yards. Greg Stroman. 5 forced fumbles for Calhoun. 3 recoveries for Amon Perry. We did have a guy with a safety. Ronnie James did have one. And then Allen's had 3 defensive touchdowns. That's crazy. We had a few players with 1. Bravo with the most field goals. Wright had the most field goal attempts. 95% for Cole Murphy. 56 long for kicker out of Cal. I don't know why I'm looking at extra points here, but he only made 88%. That's not very good. 3 mate outside of 50 for that guy. And then, of course, punting. This isn't that interesting, but just in case you want to look at it, we did have our guy win an average last year for punting. And remember, I don't control the kicks, but for some reason he did not even finish in the top 10 this year. So I guess I don't really know what happened, but maybe our offense just got so much down the field that he didn't have the opportunity to kick it that far, that often, or something like that. Kick return. We don't really have that great of kick returners yet. Although we do have a guy I'm going to be talking about probably in the third part of the offseason as our new kick returner that we're bringing in. He's pretty good. I think he's actually redshirted like right now. He'll be coming off, so that'll be talked about later. Now let's look at our own stats. Enough of that, talking about kickers and stuff. Eric Henderson, one of the best quarterbacks on our roster that will probably be taking over next year. 182 quarterback rating, and he did pretty good. Rated not with the greatest season, as I've said multiple times. Josh Hicks, one of our most leading guys. Robert Martin was really good for us, but did not play in like half the season. Dustin Neal led in receptions and yards as a freshman, so that's very good. And actually, we're going to be changing his number to number 1 because that's just as a kind of tradition as our best receiver or best skill player, I guess, should always have number 1 in our team. That's just something I want to start. So he will be changing from number 89 to number 1 for his sophomore season. Now looking at defensive, Andre Hunt led in tackles with 81 and 78 solo for him. Definitely all over the field. 19 tackles for loss for Sebastian Joseph, and 10 sacks for Joseph, 8 sacks for Waife. I feel like I've said this multiple times. Not a lot of interceptions. That's also something we need to turn up. We need to get more turnovers and cut down on our turnovers. Like, that is just the craziest ratio I've ever seen. Like, I think it was 28 giveaways without, I don't know. It's just crazy. We need to definitely take that up next year. Andy Larson did have that great, he was the player of the game in the bowl game. So I was planning on replacing him, actually. We're going to get to that in the next off season, but he did win player of the game, so I think he's going to be returning for next year. And this is kick return, punt return stuff. So now let's talk about the seniors that are leaving. Hayden Riddick, 19 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. This is the worst game, or worst season of his Rutgers career, and that's how it ends. Not the great, but he did fill in for us. He did take over the role, and I feel like he was good enough that I would like. So it's gonna be sad to let him go, but definitely shows up for the future. Robert Martin, I can't believe he only had 6 touchdowns in his entire career here. Like, that's just crazy. He must have just been hurt like last year too, because he rarely played, and I feel like he was a lot better, or he should have been one of our best running backs. And our running game would have been really good, I think, if he just could have stayed healthy. Sort of few passes, but not really much of a pass catching back. Josh Hicks finishes with 12 touchdowns. We did see him in season 1, 2, and 3. I've talked kind of bad about him last year. He only had 3.2 yards a carry. He did pick it up this year, but he will be graduating. Carlton Agudosi, only 2 touchdowns this year. I tried to get him the ball as much as possible, and it just didn't work. He got 54 receptions, but he never found the end zone ever. So I'm excited about Dustin Neal, that he does have a nose for the end zone, and that's about it. Carlton Agudosi, 6'6", senior. He might even go pro. So we'll have to see if that happens. Matt Flanagan, our tight end, he was injured this year. His still had 5 touchdowns. Probably would have led the team with touchdowns if he was healthy. But still a pretty good season for him. Dorian Miller, he played 3 different positions in each of the seasons. He'll be graduating, one of our best offensive linemen. That is sad to see him go, but I think he's the only offensive lineman. Yeah, he's the only one graduating. So our line should be a lot better next year. Tackle, Miles Nash here. Kind of not as great as the other linemen on our team, but still pretty good. Sebastian Joseph, with 19 sacks in his career, he's the best defensive player that we've ever had in this series so far. And he also had, I think, tied for 8th for most sacks in a season at Rutgers. Andre Hunt, 136 tackles for him. He played all 3 seasons, played them very well. Now we're going to look at the players that we've lost. Brandon Russell left after season number 1. He played this season. He only had 29 tackles, 1.5 sacks, and that's probably pretty good because he probably would not have played that much here. Giovanni Rosigno, I think I'm saying that correctly, but he left us last year, and of course he had to sit out this year, so he's posed to being a quarterback controversy next year for his final season. Probably would have played here, but I don't know. Looks like he might play. Looks like Billy Ball might take his spot. Kenneth Jackson, he left us last year as well, and he's looking to be a starter next year, so that's actually a really good decision for him, and that's good that he left, because, I mean, that's not good for us, but, you know, he definitely saw that he had potential at Nevada, and I think he made a really good decision. So that's going to be the end of part 1 of the off-season. I know these are long, but I really like to be thorough. You guys know that. I hope you guys enjoyed season number 3. I hope you guys are excited for the 4th season and some new stuff coming on my channel. Maybe I'm thinking about it. I know this is my only series, but I hope you guys like this, and I will catch you later. Goodbye.